All right, Buzz babies, it's another episode of Blake's Buzz, and this week I've got a couple creatives that have a new and very entertaining and fun book out coming from Dark Horse. It's called Under Kingdom, and with me I have writer Christof Bogacs, and I've got Marie Enger, who's actually quite pleasant, it seems, unlike her last name. How are you both doing this morning? Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, we're
We're
good. We're
good.
good. I flew in from Australia yesterday, so I'm excited to be in St. Louis, excited to catch up with Marie. For people, I know people often wonder with comics, it's like the collaborators, the writer and artist are friends, and in the case of Under Kingdom, we most certainly are. We're very good friends, and it's exciting to be here.
It feels good. We already did our little party last night. We're ready to sign like a bunch of books and get them ready for C2E2. I'm taking Christoph on the first American road trip from St.
Cool.
Louis to Chicago. So we're going to see all the corn and all the windmills and one big gas station.
There's a lot of
gas
there's
station.
a lot of corn. I am jealous. I just recently went to my first con. I went to Planet Comic Con last weekend.
Ooh.
I've been doing this for. Oh, sorry.
You hadn't been to one before.
No, yeah, it's first one, and I got to go like first con as press. And so like it was like a double clusterfuck, but it was amazing. And like
That's awesome.
all I want to do is like go to more. But and they with like C2E2 always comes like right after Planet, and I went like way over budget. Like I walked in there with like a handful of cash, and then definitely went to the ATM the next day because I was like, this is all the cash I'll bring, and I'll save it all for comics, and I'll bring snacks. I won't buy food. Even though they had this glorious taco truck that like I kept seeing everybody with these amazing anyways, but yeah.
They used to make it so easy because it was just garbage food, but now they're like bringing out like the regional like treats to all the convention centers, and it's a problem.
Yeah, they had like tons of awesome food trucks and stuff. But yeah, I got a lot of remarks and sketches, which is the cheapest thing you can buy at a con. But it was so cool, and like my back still hurts from like just cramming as many books in my backpack as I possibly could, and like the recording equipment and stuff I had with me to like do the interviews, and so yeah, it was a trip, and it was so cool. But so many more people are going to C2E2, and I actually heard that like if I got a press pass from Planet, I heard C2E2 is a little more liberal with their press passes. So like I could probably get press passes, but then like the problem with that is like, I'd have to find some place to stay or pay for a hotel or something. Whereas like this one was local, and like I just had my retired father was my Uber driver. He like picked me up in the morning, dropped me off, and then I would like text him when I was wrapping up and be like, hey, yeah, come get me. And but I'm hoping next year I can plan on going to some more, because it's an itch that like I will always need to scratch now. Like you hear how fun they are, how crazy they are, but just standing in line with people, right? And then you start talking about comics you like and who you're excited to meet, and then you all start showing each other like the cool shit you bought, and like everybody's a friend, it felt like, and it was just such a really, really cool experience. And
that's amazing that you got that at Planet. That's a phenomenal. I mean, it's different when you're on the other side of the table, because you're like, you have to get there before the line occurs.
Yeah.
So there's the stress in the morning, but then there's like the feel good times theoretically all throughout the rest of the day when people come through.
I think it's, as a creator, it's similar to being like press or fan, but in the sense, but obviously you do like, oh, look at this cool shit I picked up, but a lot of time it's like, oh, look at the cool shit that person's making.
Yeah.
And that's, so it's very much the same kind of vibe. And I know when I try and fly to 2 US cons a year, which is, it's pricey, but I think for any side of kind of creator, it's really useful. And just the energy you get from the cons, just really, it's just amazing.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. I was wondering if you were local or from, because I know we have a mutual friend, David Hazan, who's
who?
David?
Sorry, that was a joke. No, Dave. Oh, sorry. I'm just being an asshole. No, I love Dave is my Dave is my comics husband. So we're he's one of my in the handful of my comics ride or dies. So yeah, I love Dave.
Is he in Kansas City too?
No,
Dave is also Australian.
Oh, what? You have an Australian friend too?
Yeah.
He's been on the show a couple times and we hit it off and like the first time I interviewed him we talked for like 4 hours and I was like and then and it was like even after like we stopped recording we kept talking and he told me about all this stuff I couldn't talk about yet, you know, and then he like showed me some secret covers and then the second time I interviewed him we talked for another 4 hours and he kept being like Blake I gotta go I got that was a really bad impression of him but
you know what, no, I think it was spot on. As a friend of Dave's, I just want to tell you that I felt like he was in the room.
But
Has he ever gone to Emerald City?
No, but we did.
He went to New York.
Yeah, we did. He did New York with me last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's so yeah, we just kind of hit it off and we talk a lot and he tells me all the good comic gossip that as press I can't talk about, but it's fun to know.
Totally.
And but yeah, he told me that he was like, you got to talk to Christof. He's got this graphic novel that's amazing. It's so fun. And he was like, he'd be a good deal for your show. And I just recently got on Dark Horse's like press list, and so I'm all about kissing their ass because I really like their company. So like, if I can cater to any Dark Horse talent, you know, like boom, 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 like, and luckily like. I mean, I was going to do this either way, but like I said, I get sidetracked, guys. You're going to see this numerous times.
Yeah.
But I love Under Kingdom. Okay, I love it. It's emotional. It's fun. It's like universally appealing to like a wide audience, both like in age and you know fans of genre fiction and stuff. And it's so cool. I just. Like Shay is such a fun character and also a mess, right? I like that. I like that he's not the perfect hero. And it's fun. It's fun watching him, you know, step up and try and fail and you know, he never really getting everything right, you know, and that makes for a better narrative, adds to the tension. You both did a really great job on that. The jokes land. Marie, I love your art. It's very like, it's very, you know, angular and not like the normative, like kind of cartoony animated feel. And I think it really works for this, like, you know, you take us to a new world. Right. And I like that you make it look a little different and keep us kind of jostled. We never, you know, really know what to expect. And that was so cool. Ooh. And I just was very, very impressed. Like I read it really quickly. I had to remind myself to like slow down, think about what I wanted to talk to you guys about, just because I was just I needed to know what was going to happen. You know, like people that are listening, I mean, the gist of it is Under Kingdom is this. It's a secret world, parallel. We don't really. It's not really a parallel universe, right? Because there's like doorways hidden. In our world. Like how are you guys thinking of that, like in your head?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the way I pitch it is that it's a secret kingdom of monsters that exists underneath this town in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And, you know, when Shay's mom disappears, he finds out not only that this kingdom exists, but that he has to now run it and look after it. I think the other way I describe it is kind of like, you know, in D&D, you know, where you like go down into a dungeon and do like a dungeon crawl. I guess this is kind of like, well, what's that dungeon like when the heroes aren't there? Like, how does this dungeon function as a world? How do like the slimes in one room relate to the kobolds in another room? Like, how does everyone get along, and how does this society kind of function?
Yeah.
And that's Under Kingdom. It's like, oh, this is like a world. These characters have needs and wants. They exist, you know, and how does everyone kind of gel and work? And that's kind of what Under Kingdom is.
I feel like it's very like, we know that it's a cave, so it must have like finite rooms, and the way that all the like monsters in the kingdom already seem to have tension with each other would imply that there is finite resources in this cave, and it maybe is only as big as the city. I don't think it's definitely not infinite. I thought like in the way that I always drew it was like just a cave, just a big cave underneath the ground.
And I mean, that's why we picked West. Well, you know, when we was sort of starting, I kind of originally was like, oh, it can be let's just make it a small town in America. And Marie was like, no, let's do West Virginia. Here's why. And I went on a bit of a research rabbit hole, and Marie's like pick for West Virginia was so true. You know, it's got such rich folklore, and then also just all these caves that no one's really explored.
Yeah.
So it makes so much sense. So to answer your question, the Under Kingdom is definitely like it's a physical space. You
So
know,
this
it's
is
obviously
a nonfiction narrative. I wasn't aware of
Yes,
that.
if you go into people's basements in West Virginia and you ask their basement turtle and their door golem to let you in, they have to. There's like a rule now. Now, the people who live in the house might get very upset, so you have to be very careful. But once you get past the human monsters, the regular monsters should be totally fine.
Well, I mean
Totally
that's just the average day in America, right? And once you get past the human monsters, everything's okay.
Wherever the monsters totally cool.
Well, so yeah, it's so cool, and I like that this is from Dark Horse. Like I think Dark Horse does a lot of cool genre stuff, and they've got a lot of big fantasy properties. I feel like you guys are a good fit for them, and I hope they also have like a wide audience, right? That eats up what they put out, which will I hear one of the best parts of making comics is when the books sell. Right. So, hopefully that's the goal, right? Is like, oh, this big indie publisher is putting out our book and they're actually going to, send it to, reviewers and send it to press outlets and do these things that, we don't have to take onto our own shoulders.
Yeah.
You guys, you have to do some stuff yourself. Like you mentioned, you're gonna do you go to some cons, which is awesome. You got some books already signed to give out. Like
it's going to be in comic book stores on the 19th.
Oh, 19th? Okay.
But we will, if you follow us on socials, we'll keep you updated. And again, if the safest way is to go to your comic store, pre-order it, and they can, let you know when it's in.
Yeah, definitely. And then you will get the copy I mean, usually I don't want to say every time, because sometimes weird stuff happens, but pre-ordering is definitely the way to go. If you can pre-order it from an outlet, or I mean, like people that are going to be at C2E2, go to the booth, get you a signed copy, meet the creators. It's a cool experience that I'm already missing, even though like it felt like the longest weekend ever, because I was there all day, all three. Well, I left a little early Saturday, but I mean, like it was just a long weekend, and then I think what was it, Sunday I did 11 interviews. Like Sunday was the worst.
Too many
day.
interviews, Blake.
Wow,
dude,
that is nonstop talking for an entire show.
Yeah,
you interviewed a whole convention.
It was because they all kept telling me, they were like, Sunday's like the slower day, so kind of keep an eye on the booths, and if the booth looks slow, swing by, we'll give you a few minutes. And so I was like, okay, well, like, 12 people told me that. So on Sunday, I'm just like walking in circles waiting for the lines to go away. And it was over at 5:00 on Sunday. Right. And so like time just kind of flies by at these things. So I'm noticing like it's 11:30. Oh, it's 12:30. Oh, it's 2:00. I'm like, I only have a few hours left. Like I still want, and I pretty much got to almost everybody I wanted, except Garth Ennis left early. How dare him. And, but he had agreed to an interview. And so like, I like swung back and they left, and I was like, but I mean, I got to meet him and talk to him, and he signed some comics for me. So,
but I assume he had to go and just like go and jump into a pool full of that boy's money.
That's what he did. Yeah,
I hear they take you up in a golden helicopter before you're allowed to jump into a pool of boys' money. That's what I want for Under Kingdom. When are we gonna have a pool full of cave money?
I mean,
you got to get that Amazon series, right? Like.
Oh no, that's why we have Dark Horse.
But just to return to what you were saying about Dark Horse, I think a lot of comic book creators, and I'm sure you can relate to this too, Blake, as someone who like works in the comic space, is comics are really, as a comic creator, and publishers are really well known to comics people, and outside of that, most people have no clue.
Yeah.
So one of the lovely things about Dark Horse is, a bunch of people outside of comics have heard of the publisher, and if they haven't, they know Umbrella Academy and they know Hellboy. Mm-hmm. So I can just be like, oh, I'm doing it at the publisher that does Hellboy, and if they don't know that, they generally know Umbrella Academy, and they're like, oh, that's big because it's something they know. So that's been the really lovely thing about Dark Horse, is that they kind of have this cut through, and they're really kind of becoming known in the mainstream kind of pop culture consciousness. Mm-hmm. So having that kind of connection to stuff people know is so valuable.
Definitely.
All of our parents are impressed.
That's good.
That's
That's good.
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally.
I don't know what that's like. I don't know. Like I don't know what having impressed parents is like. I hear it's not. I hear it's nice. You know, my sister says it's great, but I don't know.
I
No.
mean, until we had the Dark Horse book, we were just the neighborhood fuck ups, I suppose. But now that we have the Dark Horse book,
Yeah,
when
totally.
our parents are like, they do comics, they can be like with Hellboy and Umbrella Academy, and
Yeah.
they
Totally.
can name that off, and suddenly now we're legitimate again.
Well,
so that's the fun part.
Marie and I both have now books coming out with like on the book market,
Yeah.
and when so Marie with Random House and myself with HarperCollins, and like when I got that deal, I was like excited to get the deal, but more excited that I could just now tell people I work for HarperCollins and they understand.
Yeah.
Like my parents were like, "Oh, HarperCollins," and suddenly understood what I was doing. So.
Yeah.
But we definitely got that with Dark Horse as well. People are like, oh, you're not just like, because when you say you make comics, comics are huge.
Mhm.
There's everything from indie stuff to Marvel and DC. So often letting kind of people know where you're at, and who you're working for kind of helps kind of be like, oh, like not that there's anything wrong with indie comics, obviously, but it's like, oh, you're actually a working professional as opposed to someone kind of doing
Yeah.
it.
It's
Definitely.
tricky because like I don't know. I do most of my stuff is DIY. Like almost all of my work has been self-published, except for like Under Kingdom, Where Black Stars Rise, and Controlled Burn. Those are all like through pubs. But I had been doing like DIY comics for 10 years, and it's a different sort of living. It requires a lot of different moving parts, but people who weren't like invested in comics or zines never knew what it meant.
Mm.
So like you would go in and you're like, yeah, I do comics. And they'd be like, well, what do you do? And then you'd have to explain like I run a Kickstarter, and then I do fulfillment, and then I order stuff from XYZ, and then it takes so many months to come here. And if you just say, oh, I do a book at Dark Horse, and the conversation's over in like a second. And you know exactly what you're talking
Totally.
about. Oh, okay, you're one of those. I get it. But it's exciting because I think now I was going through a Target the other day, and they had actually set up like a little book display in
Mhm.
their like kids section by all the toys, and it had like 50% graphic novels at least. It had a really robust selection of them. And as an adult walking through the Target, I was very excited and drawn into this display. And I cannot wait to see Under Kingdom just blasted all over that. I think a big lemon
Nice.
like draped over that would be choice. Beautiful. Target should get in contact with us
Yeah.
and let me come in and do their displays. I'll do it for not for free in person.
any Target reps listening, contact these two and like get these books out there. I do love that about Target though. Like they have like the cool they have like the top tier action figures now. They sell manga, they sell comics, like and
They
then
sell manga here.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
We'll go to the Target on Hampton. You
I
can
would
see the
love
big
that,
Target.
yeah.
I'll show you the display.
It's very mainstream, like Attack on Titan and Spy Family. Like it's the
But
big
that's how
stuff.
kids
But
get into comics.
Yeah.
That's how like Spider-Man was. Like everybody that I knew who was older and had gotten into comics were like, yeah, I got them at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so everyone could get them. They were just kind of wherever you were when you were bored and your parents were shopping. And I grew up in Washington, Missouri, so kind of like
Okay.
a small town outside of St. Louis. There was no bookstore, there was no Target, there was no comic book store, certainly. So all I had was the online, and there were no comic books at the library, especially. Like this would never have been something that I could not have gotten Under Kingdom when I lived there.
Wow.
But it's so exciting now to see like this big push to kind of make comics mainstream, like in a new kind of fresh way. And I'm really excited because it's enticing. It's enticing to look at that stuff when you're out and you're bored and your parents are shopping, and now you have a cool new book to read.
Yeah. I remember like 7-Eleven and the grocery stores selling comics when I was a kid. And you never got like sequential issues, right? Like you'd get X-Men 117 and then come back and get like 123 and you're like, I don't know what happened, but I'm still reading it and having fun.
I'm going with it.
Yeah. So it's weird how how much, because we didn't have the MCU back then, right? We didn't have these like huge bombastic sometimes billion-dollar franchises and stuff, right? And yet you could get them almost everywhere. And now you have to go to like comic book shops or a bookstore with a graphic novel section. But even bookstores are, like Barnes and Noble is still around, but there's not as many of them as there used to be. So it's weird how things are getting more popular, but still not as accessible. And like, but it's cool though now. Like we have Hoopla, right? And I feel
Yeah.
sometimes I feel
Yes.
dirty about Hoopla
Oh
because
my
I'm
God.
like,
No.
I'm like, but I know like libraries support the creators and stuff too. So like using
Yeah.
Hoopla is also good for you all, but it feels weird. Like I'm like reading all these comics every month for free and not having to pay for them. But there's something's getting exchanged somewhere. I hear like it's good for
yeah.
somebody.
It's Hoopla's amazing.
I think the only kind of look, I think there's no bad way to read comics. You know, I think the least good way, or the you know, is obviously to pirate them, and the reason
Yeah.
for that is, right, a lot of the time on these pirate sites, these comics are getting thousands of downloads, and it's like if they got even like a quarter of that in sales, you know, that would
Yeah.
make such a big difference to the creator.
A lot of the, I don't know. I have a weird hot take on piracy with comics. I, as someone who was like a teen and read a lot of comics, I typically like with Hoopla. I prefer Hoopla because it's super easy to download.
That's
Yeah.
how you beat piracy,
Yeah.
right? Is you make it
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah, and I read it, and then I bought like when I worked at a comic book shop, Saga was like all the rage. Everyone had all the Saga books.
Yeah.
I've moved and I like Saga, but when I moved, I was like, these are not my favorite books. I don't want to bring 5 pounds of books with me that I now have to store. So I was able to get rid of them. And if I want to revisit now that they're updating again, I can just go to Hoopla and read that. And if I want to buy the new volumes, I can kind of restart my collection that way.
Yeah.
Or I can just keep it on my tablet. Or I can, what I really love, my favorite way to download digital comics, especially from like creators who you can't like see in person. Because like Beck, your co-creator, like I've never met Beck before. I've never gotten to like do a show where I've gotten to hold any of their work, but I was able to get a digital copy of Meat for Burgers because they put it on their online, and I was able to grab it directly from the creator as a PDF, and that's the best way to do it because then the creator gets the money directly.
Yep.
I don't know. I also think that like piracy people, maybe later they'll come around. Maybe they'll remember like catching your book and like, I've always thought about this weird file and I got it and it was super corrupted and now I got to find the right way to read this book. And I don't know. I have weird thoughts on it. I know that a lot of people do not agree with me.
No, I used to pirate comics but way like many years ago, like before I did any of this, before I knew about the industry, I used to pirate everything. I downloaded tons of movies, like when Napster was out, like you could never call our house because the phone was always busy because we were all downloading music, MP3s all the time, right?
Yeah.
And over dial up, and it took fucking forever. And like, but you know, and I never really knew the catastrophic effects of piracy, right? Until that's what sucks about doing what I do now is I love this industry. I love comic books with my whole heart. And the more I learn about them, there's such a big bummer element to it about how creatives get treated, how these big publishers treat some of you guys, and just how it's so easy to get left in the dust or unnoticed. And also like we were talking about the piracy numbers when like a comic gets downloaded 100,000 times and then Marvel
those views
cancels
should go
it.
to your count.
Yeah.
That should count.
Yeah.
That counts. Like if someone's reading your stuff, it should count.
Exactly.
It's interesting what you say about like you know, the barriers, Blake, because I think you know, obviously like the big question from newer creators, and I mean I'm still new in a lot of ways, but you know I guess I've got my foot in the door a little bit now, but like, you know, is how do you break into comics, which is you know, and the whole idea of breaking in is usually when people ask that question, right, they want a book at Dark Horse or a book you know, a book at like Oni or a book at a publisher they know. But the interesting thing about comics, you know, is that you never, as I mean, anyone can tell you this, but you never truly break in the sense that there's always another barrier, there's always another hurdle, you know. So I've got Under Kingdom coming out, but at the moment, the next kind of thing I'm trying to do is like get licensed work, so that can lead to, you know, doing licensed work for bigger publishers, and so you're always going up against hurdles, and that's just part of it. Or like, you know, we've got Under Kingdom coming out, and our hurdle at the moment is like get as many people to know about it, so the, you know, the book is big, so you know. And like what Marie was saying, right, is Marie was making a living doing like
just DIY stuff.
But in terms of like when people think of breaking in and they think of working for publishers,
they don't view it the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Even though they were making a living making comics.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's, you're always breaking in is kind of the point. There's always a new hurdle and a new kind of place you're trying to get to.
Yeah. I think the publishers could definitely make it much easier for us.
Oh, for sure.
In general. But like I know that like a lot of people have done webtoons work and had wildly successful runs on like DC and Marvel books that have just been like pirated to shit.
Mm-hmm.
But people obviously love those books, and I think when creators get noticed in that sort of way, even if it's like small and online or seemingly small, because like most of us aren't just like doing our social media on torrent sites, but you know, that's still like someone at DC's looking at that stuff. They can see that's an important metric to break in, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, it all comes down to accessibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like DC's doing the stuff with all the series with like webtoons at the moment, which I think is so smart. And our friend Jasmine Walls is writing one for them.
She wrapped up. Now they're sending it to print.
Yeah, it's coming out the Bat Family one, right?
Yeah, and so Jasmine wrote Vixen NYC.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I heard like the Wayne Family Adventures is really big as well. But like, to me, that's so smart is that you're, you know, giving people direct access to it, you know, through an app they already know, and then if they like it, now there's an option to, you know, buy it as a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who doesn't really read webtoon stuff, I'm looking forward to picking some of those up as like graphic novels.
Same.
So it's that seems like.
I'm fairly new to webtoons, and I was reading this horror comic on there called Witch Creek Road, and it's terrifying, and it's really good, and it's like a very polished comic, right? Great art, solid writing, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, you know, there's not a lot of ads, and I'm reading issue after issue, and I'm like, man, how do they make money? And then after I read a handful of issues, it's like, well, you're done for today unless you want to pay $5, and I was like, well, shit, that's how they make money. And I paid the $5. I was like, I'm having a good time reading this. I have no problem with it. And so like, I paid the $5, but yeah, it also like, I like what DC's doing is like, I'm a member of DC Ultra, right? So I paid $99 for the year, and I get to read everything after it's been out a month. It goes out on DC Ultra.
Oh, wow.
That's
so yeah,
awesome.
so
it's amazing. Like
so
it
it's
saves so
similar
much money.
I remember because I think Marvel Unlimited, it might have changed, but when I had Marvel Unlimited, I think it was like 6 months.
It's 6 months for them. Yeah. I keep hoping they'll change it. Like I was hoping they'd do something to like combat with DC, but they haven't yet.
Because 1 month to me seems perfect, right? It's after a month, it's unlikely you're going to pick up the floppy.
Yeah.
But you can still be up to date on what's happening in the universe. That's real clever.
I wouldn't want to, like, even having worked at a comic shop before. Okay, because I worked at a comic shop, I do not ever want to buy floppies. I do not like having them in my house. They take up so much space.
Yeah.
Mice eat them. It's horrible. But I would love, well, maybe mice don't eat them in your house.
I was going to say that last one is very specific.
I have like, I mean, you can see
I've had a mouse chew on an omnibus, like here.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just get in. Like, I keep all my floppies in like boxes on the ground, unless they're like floppies of extreme note.
Yeah.
Where they've been like signed or they're like super rare zines. But with like DC or Marvel, I would rather just have the trade at the end. And I would like the trade to look nice. I want these big publishers. Under Kingdom looks really nice. We have a really beautifully designed book, no complaints.
Yeah.
We worked real hard to make it look real beautiful. And now it's like
a nice thick tome. And I want that from all my DC and Marvel stuff.
Totally.
A nice thick tome to put on my shelf. And I would wait a year. Like if they gave us like all this stuff is digital for a year, and then at the end you get this beautiful book, I'd be sold. I would probably read DC and Marvel that way.
Yeah, I'm big on omnibuses, right? I like the big giant tomes that like it makes you feel like your arm might fall off after holding it for an hour, and like
you have to like set it up on the lectern.
Yeah, I got like a lap desk, and you can like sit it and like. But I just like, and they are expensive books, but like if you break down, like there's 45, 50 issues in this thing. It doesn't cost as much as you think it does. But yeah, I have so many floppies and I don't know what to do with them. And the stuff I don't want that I think about selling, like no one else fucking wants it either. So like,
what a pain in the butt.
It's just, so you're like stuck with it. And yeah, they take up, long boxes take up so much room. Short boxes are easier to handle, but then there's more of them. And it's just, I have so many comics now that I'm like, I wish I didn't have these, and most of them aren't worth anything because apparently my taste in comics is I just buy trash that nobody wants.
There's like one gem in there.
Not to say that Under Kingdom is not a great book, because
it will be collector's quality one day, I swear. Well, like I feel like we're very lucky that we're here together because we have all the copies of Under Kingdom in the United States right now that are not stuck in a port in Seattle.
Nice.
We have them in this apartment. And so we were able to take some to Emerald City, which was awesome. I unfortunately wasn't able to go, but my husband went and sold for us. And one of the best compliments that he was given to him about the book that he didn't draw, but he represented while he was there, was this little girl came up immediately and was like, I want that. Pointed to Under Kingdom right away. And he was like, she got it.
Which is
beelined right to it.
Nice.
Yeah, which is like, as a creator, particularly in the kids space, that's what you want, right? You kind of design this stuff to be like, you want kids to immediately see it and because kids are just so wonderfully open, you want them to see it and immediately connect with it. So when that happens, it was
beautiful.
That's one of the things I experienced at the con was when you like catch the eye of someone at a booth and they're like, oh hey, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm poor, like I don't not buy it. I'm like, but you have to do that, right? You see someone look at your booth, you need to kind of jump out and wave them down and lasso them and ring them in, right, and pull them in and then squeeze them for all their money.
Yeah, yes, but no. Like I'm about to be this person at C2E2. My biggest advice to new creators who table at conventions, and I've done a lot, and I like tabling at conventions, and not to toot my own horn, I do feel like I'm pretty good at it. I made like a quarter of my income solidly through only conventions.
Wow.
For the past couple, I mean, it was just like my thing. Like I would just go and I would sling books, but it's not like, even if you don't have money, you should come over and look at the stuff because you're at a convention. You were there to experience the art form. I'm not personally hurt when someone walks away because they're broke. I too am broke. I understand. Like I go and I have like a certain amount of money that I spend at the show as well. But I like talking to everybody and I like connecting with other people who like comics. I also keep a stash of free shit under my table for people who want to have a comic, engage with me, but then are like, oh, I really love this. I'm going to come back next year when I have money. Boop. There you go. Like I keep stuff back there just because it's a nice way to connect. And when we go to C2E2, I have like my con friend, my not little anymore because he's an adult, but a con friend. Like I met him when he was, I think 16. I've known him for the past 10 years. He's gone to Heroes Convention. He's gone to C2E2. And now he always brings me a cup of coffee. He comes by, he came to like a workshop I did in Chicago. I don't know that he's ever bought anything. He's just always been there and we always connect and it's always just like a good time. And that's a fun, I don't know, it's fun too. And also like, if you are new at a show, it is so tempting to just look down at your table and get really self-conscious about how you're doing and you don't feel very good. And when people just avoid you because they don't have money, you feel so much worse. And it's just like, please just come touch my stuff. Show me that you're interested in comics, that you want to see what I have. Even if you don't want to take it home with you, just come look.
Well, now I feel like an asshole for
No, don't. No, that's why I said this, because I was like, I know a lot of people always do that and they feel really uncomfortable and I get it, but I'm shameless now. And I'll go up to the tables and be like, I don't have any money. I just want to see this stuff and look through. And then maybe later in the week, I'll have more money. Maybe I found secret money and then I can come back, or at least I've made a connection.
Yeah.
And that's what we're there to do. Like we're a small community of creatives together and fans together, and we're supposed to connect and have a good time. And money shouldn't factor into that, even though it super does.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. Because it just gets like kind of intimidating sometimes. Like it's just because, like I said, this was like my first con, and just the overwhelming amount of just things and
they're
toys and books, and everything. Yeah. Or you see like these big prints, and you're like, oh, those are how much are these? And they're like $130, and you're like, like sorry, like these are very cool, but not for me. And then you feel kind of bad, right? And I could tell like a couple of the booth dealers too. They'd be like looking at stuff and I don't want to say things were overpriced because it's art and they were beautiful pieces and I know printing is expensive and they were printed on nice stock for the prints and stuff, But I mean, there were a couple guys. I'd be like, "Hey, how much are these?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, those are 45." And he like, you could tell like he'd be like, "I keep saying 45, and no one's buying these things." And you could just kind of tell like they're. And then I even did one interview, and I won't say who, but it was a big guy from an image offset, and I almost didn't like. I almost felt bad talking to him because his booth was like no one was at his booth, and I came up and I was like, hey man, like I was like, I read your new comic and it's really good, and like, would you want to do an interview? And he was like, I guess, man, I'm just really fucking tired. And I was like, oh, I was like,
that's real.
I was like, I'll leave. I'm sorry, dude. He was like,
No.
no, let's do it. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just, it's been a long weekend.
You just gotta dish it back. Like it is so exhausting. And I hate to be like, I could see myself giving that answer at a con, just being like, yeah, whatever. Just do it. Let's just, yes. But you get so tired and it's just like, you get face blind because you've met so many different people. Now you're meeting so many different people again.
Yeah.
Everyone looks like this or a variant of this. Like, it's just, you get confused.
Well, technically everyone looks like a variant of this, just a white guy with different lengths of beard.
Different lengths.
But the weird enigma of working in comics is most people, a lot of people who are like artists or writers, you do it because you like being introspective and for a lot of the time being alone. So I'm not saying like everyone in comics is an introvert, but a lot of us are.
Yeah.
You know, introverts tend to be drawn to the arts. So, you know, when Marie's working on a book, right, you'll be at home for 12, 13 hours a day just in front of like a tablet doing your thing.
This tablet right here, this very tablet that you're looking at.
But then you go to a con and you're expected for 12 hours a day to be on and to be socializing with people and to be charming. And it's a huge disconnect. So when people are like, I'm exhausted,
that's
you know,
real. That's the interview right there. Why are you that would be interesting if you're like, why are you so tired? Why so sleepy, comic creators?
So I think for fans, if you ever kind of, and I always keep this in mind, right? If you talk to like a Korean and you're like, oh man, he seems grumpy or tired or whatever, that's why, you know, it's nothing to do with you. It's just, it's a really demanding industry in that way. And I always find it so odd to me that, you know, again, as a creator, you're working alone and then you're like a pseudo celebrity for sort of 3 days and expected to be everything to everyone. And then you're back to being alone again.
Your parents not respecting your job.
You're not understanding what you do.
What are you doing in there? No, I'm excited for C2E2, and I'm glad that you said something about like feeling uncomfortable sometimes with the money aspect of shows. I wish that there was a way for us at conventions to kind of make like a no sale hour where we could just connect with people, where like if you want to come on the show floor an hour early, you can't buy anything, you can't stand in a line, you have to talk to everybody. Like speed dating for comics, but no one gets a relationship at the end. Everyone just gets to go back and sit at their table.
I mean, that's kind of what happens with speed dating anyway, right? I talked to a whole bunch of people that didn't have any goddamn interest in me today. It was great.
Back to the table. I'm glad Planet was so good. I've done Planet. I haven't done it recently, but I've done it a couple of times in the past. And it has always been like my most chaotic show. Kansas City has some like weird quirks going on.
I do know they were serving alcohol at like fucking 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, they do that.
I was like, really?
Too. It's horrible. Like, man, when they bring open containers onto the show floor, I'm always just like, please step away from my original art. That is $500. If you spill a Budweiser on it, I'm gonna lose my shit. No,
That's insane.
Yeah, no, they're gonna have that at C2E2. Big. Don't worry. And there might be leftover St. Patrick's Day beer, so it'll be green because they don't always like switch the keg out after the convention. They just use whatever's left.
I come from a country that runs on alcohol.
Yeah.
And this trouble.
Yeah, when I did C2E2 in 2019, so like 2019, I think I did 12 or 15 shows that year. Like just an insane amount of. Yeah, it was not. I wouldn't recommend it. It was really, really brutal and not particularly good for working. Like it was good for selling stuff, but it was not good for like creating comics.
Yeah.
Because you're gone 2 days before the show because you have to travel and set up, and then you're there for 3 days, and then you have 2 days of travel back, and then
you gotta
usually
like
you get super
reboost.
sick.
Like
Yeah. Your whole vibe's thrown off, and then it's hard to get back in the groove. And it's really, this is gonna sound so first world problem-y, but like it's really hard to get to work when you start your week on a Wednesday. Suddenly, when you're like, I'm used to starting my week on a Monday, but now I got to draw a whole week's of comics starting on Wednesday. Difficult. But when you go to shows like at C2E2, they had all these shows back to back. It was like Emerald City, Planet Comic Con, C2E2, all in a row.
Wow.
And at the end of C2E2, it had been St. Patrick's Day. And so they had all the green beer in the hotel, and they had rebranded it like Hulk, the Green Lantern, She-Hulk.
That's
awesome.
Incredible.
All the green beers. They weren't they were all probably the same green beer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I didn't drink any of them because I was like, this is probably so old and so flat. And what if I have green teeth and then they knew I drank the Hulk beer? All the other comic creators would laugh at me. Terrible. Anyway.
Yeah, I was surprised that they did it on St. Patrick's Day weekend, because we get pretty wild in Kansas City but it wasn't bad. Like the parade was away from the convention center, and like it was cool.
They should have gotten the con people involved. You could have had all the cosplayers in there.
Yeah, I mean that would have been a good idea. What I'm mad is they don't check your, like, you can bring anything into those cons, right? Like I could have. My Grogu water bottle could have been full of just vodka. Like
it could, and in some people's case, it is.
Yeah, like I was like, man, like I was like, next year I'm gonna get some like airplane bottles of like Jameson and like try. I don't want to get tanked, right? But I do know, like Sunday, if Blake's buzz could have had a little bit of buzz, doing all those interviews, it just like I'm pretty high octane. I'm high energy. I get excited, and as the end of the day, I was just a little bit tired, and I just had to, it wasn't hard, but I just had to try a little bit harder to like come off excited and ready to go, especially when I did like, it was like Cullen Bunn, Freddie Williams, David Mack, like back to back. And it was like all these like three huge people that I madly respect, and was so, like, it was like so cool to talk to them, but it was one after the other, and I like couldn't even really process it. And then I couldn't remember what any of us talked about until like I went home and looked at the footage, and I was like, oh, that was a pretty good, that was a pretty good talk. Oh, good job, Blake. Like, okay, nice.
The Fugue State is not a bad place to do the show. My personal thing is like, if your energy level is up the whole show, you're golden. Yeah. The second it starts to drop, you're fucked. Yeah. Like if I start losing my energy on Saturday, amp that shit back up somehow, because you gotta keep Sunday strong, and then you can crash on Monday and not talk to anybody. Complete silence.
Yeah, that's what was hard, was the not sleeping deal, because it was like, I mean, I slept, but I was proud of myself. I was there like an hour and a half early every day. I was Sunday I was first in line. Saturday I was like second in line. Friday I didn't realize press got to go into the fast lane, and so I was like in the GA line with the rest of the heathens, and I met some.
You're a man of the people. You don't want to forget your roots now that you're press. You're still part of the masses.
But yeah, it was cool. Like I got to like, it's like when I met Kevin Eastman on Saturday, like I went like right to his booth, and then didn't have to wait in line for like hours and hours and hours, like everybody else did. So like I definitely, but I got up at like 5:30 and then did some like prep, and then like got to the con by 8, and then made sure like I got to eat like breakfast or something, and then go home, and then go home, and then I would have to read like whoever I was talking to the next day. I would like read a couple things or brush up on what I wanted to talk to them about, and then also I was like still really excited, and then like I couldn't get to sleep right away, or like Saturday I took a nap and then woke up at 7, and then didn't get back to bed till like 3, and then like woke up at 5:30, and I was just like, this sucks. I'm like pounding 5-hour energy drinks.
You got the whole comic book experience. It felt like you said this was your first time as a press. Yeah. Now you know what it's gonna be like every time. Yeah. You gotta don't come at 8. That's so early.
That is too
Roll
early,
in
dude.
5 minutes before the show floor opens and panic when you can't find coffee. That's the way to wake yourself up fast. And then you don't have coffee to start the show. You're just panicked. Yeah. You're running on pure adrenaline.
But yeah, it was definitely cool. And I'm hoping with all the interviews and stuff, and like, Tag and Planet. So I'm hoping next year they give me my press pass again. Like I feel like I did a good job.
You got it. You did 11 interviews on one day. Yeah. You're going back to Planet. I'll come back. I'll come see you at Planet sometime. Maybe you'll come. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, look, if I'm in the country, hell yeah.
If they back it so that it's like ECC and Planet and C2E2 in a row again, we can just have the hell gauntlet and be super sick at the end. It was hell. It was really hard to do that show. Man, the flu that I had after those shows, immense.
Yeah, I was really glad I didn't get the con crud, like, because that's all you hear about, right? And then you think of like the super convention COVID, like some fucking new brand of like ass kickery, and like so I was
so nerdy when they're like, it came from this comic convention. All these dirty comic creators just breathing on each other.
It went from eating bats to nerds. We ruined the world.
Did you get the Naruto variant?
Ooh. Are we gonna do like clout based on the variants that we have? So can you bag and board and grade a variant of COVID that you get at a comic convention? Does that count as like, do you have to do like a little test, or do you do like your COVID card? I don't know. How do you grade those?
Yeah, you would put your little pregnancy test looking thing in there, right? And just like you could sell it.
I had COVID.
I'm a famous creator. My snot is mixed in with this. You get my DNA.
They could keep drawing comics.
I got COVID from Alan Moore.
Yeah,
they're like fancy.
He coughed right through his beard and into my mouth, and I got COVID.
And now I'm a better writer. And I didn't even have to pay the $90 for his masterclass. I just let the man spit in my mouth, and now I'm just cranking out books like I'm a machine.
Do you think that if Alan Moore gives you the COVID that he has, that you become Alan Moore a little bit through magic and inspiration, or do you get a little piece of his power, and that the more people who get Alan Moore's COVID, the less good at writing he becomes?
Oh yeah, so his power is like diluted.
Oh,
his power is diluted, massively diluted, depending on how strong your COVID is.
Maybe it comes back. Like maybe the more people he infects, like it depletes him, but then as they get better and aren't sick, then his magic comes back. Because that's the cost, right? That's the give and take of magic.
Ooh, I like this new conspiracy theory we started about Alan Moore, and I am curious to see what he thinks about it and who is right. And I think it's us. And if so, can we have some of his power?
Is when we get his power, does Grant Morrison hate us slightly, even though he doesn't know us? Like, will he know?
He just knows instinctively that he doesn't like us.
He can smell it. He's like, it's you.
Is it like an underworld scenario where like it's like vampires versus lichens? Like he knows now that we're like the vampire Alan Moore crew. There's not an alliance. And so if you ally with him, then we all have to fight? Do we get cool leather get-ups?
I just appreciate the underworld reference. That is, yeah.
Well, because Under Kingdom, Underworld, all the under factions, all fighting. What faction in Under Kingdom would Alan Moore's COVID belong to, do you think?
It's got to be the Jello.
The icky. Sure.
They have their own language, and the gelatinous cube. By the way, I laughed really hard. Remember when we were here to talk about your guys' book?
We should probably talk about it sometime.
The intro pages for like the classes and the characters, and when you give us like the weaknesses and the synopsis and stuff, I really, really loved that. And I laughed very hard at the gelatinous cube, and it was like the weakness of the round holes. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? It was so silly, but that's what makes this book really great, right? Because a lot of it is silly, right? But it's got a lot of realness in it, and it's got both of you speaking of like injecting magic and germs and weirdness, like from Alan Moore or Grant Morrison and COVID. On that line, both of you inject so much charm and heart and fun into this narrative, and it's rich with it, and every page turn is a delight. It really is. I'm excited for you guys to I hope you get like a lot of people coming up and seeing that cover.
I'm so glad you love we call them like explainer pages basically, but it's just like, as a kid, I don't know if you're like this, Blake, but I just loved facts. I would just read books of facts, and like the Guinness World Record book. So like the pages were kind of an ode to that, is like just that kids seem to just love sucking up information.
Reminded me of like when when every new Final Fantasy game came out, I always got the strategy guide, right? And like the bestiary, and when you found these like crazy monsters, and you could look it up and like find their weaknesses or where to find them and what items they dropped or what 100%. You could steal from them, like. I very felt like a nice nod and homage to that. Like, so I was digging that a lot.
Oh, right. Yeah. 100%. That's, I know to that. Like, and also it was kind of a note to like the official Pokemon handbook, which I had as a kid.
Oh,
I just
yes.
loved.
I had that too.
Yeah. So many. It was really popular. But I just loved it. We'd just like look through and just like read what Psyduck's attacks were, and that apparently for me as a kid was a good time.
But then you like remember what his attacks are for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
This is what it looks like.
It looks so.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like.
really...
Is that some spot gloss on there?
Yeah.
Oh yes, we got spot gloss on Shay and Under Kingdom, the title, but not our names. I think it's on the side too. Yes, it's on the side.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the book is.
You can't really see on my.
That looks that must have some nice paper stock too, because it's what 88 pages. That's a nice girthy book.
It does. I wasn't really sure what sort of paper we were gonna get when we were looking at it, and when it arrived, and I was with coloring too, especially like Under Kingdom, as you can see on the digital version, has some juicy colors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those colors don't like print actually. They always look a little bit different when it's on the page.
Yeah.
And so I was really worried that if we got a type of paper that was not super absorbent, maybe the colors would not look so good.
Yeah.
But they turned out really great. You can't see because I'm looking at it, and even if you could see, it would look coloring correct on the computer. But they turned out really good. It feels kind of like a Mission Hill kind of color scheme.
Okay.
Every room is kind of a different color. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it definitely popped on the tablet, like the digital, because that's one of the. I like having books and holding physical books, but because of what I do, I've had to get accustomed to digital reading, right? So I have a nice Android 12.5-inch tablet, which is almost the size of a comic page, right? So, and the OLED screen. That spoils you because the colors explode when you turn it up, and then you go to like read a book, and then you're like, "Is this muted?"
I'm fine.
And of course, like that's like a sin. I shouldn't say that, right? Because people are gonna be like, "I'm not listening to you anymore, Blake, because you said a digital book looked better than a physical book. That's against the rules."
I hate to be that guy. But I love to color on my iPad because like you said, I'm here for 13 hours a day doing a page, and Under Kingdom pages are kind of packed. And typically it takes me about 10 hours to do any comic page that I'm working on, even if it's pretty small. And so I'll sit and I'll do all my coloring on Under Kingdom or any comic when I'm on the couch, just having my nighttime, taking a little break. And so everything I see is colored through the iPad, and it's like really bright and vivid and lush and awesome. And then I poured it over to my Cintiq to do my final checks. I'm like, ugh, dull, boring, ugly, flat. And then it gets printed. And I'm like, ugh, even darker, boring, ugly, flat. But no one else saw those iPad colors except for me. Yeah. So everyone else is just like, oh, wow, this looks super cool. What a unique color scheme. So it evens itself out. But I also agree that I kind of like the way that digital colors look.
Yeah,
you can just get a real richness with them that you can't get on the printed page, and it's just a different feel. But I like holding the book in my hand too. So
yeah, especially when it's like we talked about, like when there's nice paper stock, and you can, because I nerd out on stuff. I do a lot of, I back a lot of Kickstarters and work with a lot of Kickstarter people, and that's one of the best parts about Kickstarters, because like, you get this nice stock and thicker paper, and it always makes me feel like I have like I'm always trying to like split pages. I'm like, oh, there's 2 pages here. Nope, it's just one thick. I'm just used to like the Marvel equipped with moisture wrinkle thin, like the Bible stock of, like you could fucking roll a joint with it. And like
that's what we can do with all our old floppies now that it's legal here. We can just make comic book joints. I don't want to think about what weird heavy metals we would be smoking.
Right, the weird the inks and stuff.
Pages.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll make those colors pop even more. Who knows? I'm not opposed to trying.
You don't need the screen anymore.
But yeah, I do. I'm really glad I got to read this book, and I'm really glad that you guys came on my show, because a lot of my I think all ages comics are intense, right? Because they usually bring a lot more emotions into the fray, which is weird, because it's like we take, like, a younger audience can handle emotions better than adults can, so we just like throw all this like heavy shit at them, right? And they because I usually look at like all ages books as like, well, I'm gonna cry, and I'm probably gonna cry really hard, and
that's a really
I love that, because that's such an insightful way of looking at it, because I think
I'm a very insightful person, guys.
This
You didn't pick that up yet?
No, but like, okay, but that's real. I until you had said that, I had not really thought about all the YA books that I read to get ready for Under Kingdom and for writing our own YA books were like very emotional and very heavy. And I did not expect that when I picked each and every one of them up. Even ones that I thought were going to be really lighthearted were a little heavier.
I think it's because kids are so much more open, right? So when like, at least often as an adult, particularly if I'm like in a bad mood and I'm starting to watch something, my first question that comes to mind is like, why should I care about this character? Why should I care about them and their problems? And for the most part, kids don't have that. Kids are just open. So I think you can just kind of focus on the problems and the emotional complexity of the characters' lives, because kids don't do that cynical thing, which is like, why should I care? You know, they're already at a point of caring.
They haven't been broken by life yet. That's a good point.
No, exactly. They haven't, they haven't built all those filters that we have as adults, and there's something really, really wonderful and freeing when you're writing for kids, because you're right. Like, you can just kind of really dig into the emotions, and have a comedy book that is also really quite sentimental.
And I also like the queer elements that you guys bring to the narrative, right? And it just as like. It just was very what?
I said really subtle stuff. It's just like a bunch of flags and stuff in the classrooms. But
yeah, well, and the love interest, like Ed and Shay, and like
I forget. We were just talking about this. It's weird that like it's just his middle school crush.
Yeah. I mean, that's how. Because it's tricky, right? Because I'm a straight cis dude, so I wanted, obviously you want to walk the line between like I want queer kids to know that like you exist, but I also don't want to, tell anyone else's story. So the way I approached Shay's crush was like very much like, well, what was it like when I had a high school crush? And that's, so it's just, at least the way I wrote it, and there was nothing specific about a same-sex relationship to it. It was just, the universal feeling of having a crush.
And that awkwardness of being so young and ignorant and not knowing how to deal with your complex emotions. You both did that so well, like in the art and the facial expressions and the dialogue. And then to add like the weight and the tension of being pulled back and forth between this magical realm and still like the poor fucking kid doesn't get a break. He's trying to find his mom. He's losing sleep. He's got to fight a war and he doesn't even want to fight, and then he has to come back and deal with high school bullshit. Like, what did Shay do to you both?
He's got to run track.
I mean,
Ed is nice. We just established that Ed is good. He's got one nice person. I mean, he's got Sibel.
I think for kids, you forget that they're dealing with everything, right?
Yeah.
They're dealing with especially kids growing up now. With the state of the world, it's so heavy. But they're also like, and they're having to deal with that heaviness, right? But then they've also still got to deal with school stuff. So it's just, that's kind of what we wanted to capture, I think, just like dealing with everything and and a lot of the time as a kid, you're not equipped to deal with some of these really complex stuff, but you just have to kind of make do. And that's kind of who Shay is. He's thrown into various situations and he has no idea how to deal with or equipped to deal with, but he kind of figures his way through them, and a big part of that is him just staying true to who he is, which is kind of what we want kids to do, right? It's like the idea that the childhood simplicity and idealism, you don't have to lose that as an adult, that you can hold on to that kindness and it can help you navigate these complex adult situations.
And so impressive to be able to include all that in 88 pages in a piece of genre fantasy fiction, right? Like
crammed it in.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't feel crammed in. I say this all the time. I need to find a new fucking phrase, but it felt very organic, and it really did. It was very natural. The progression, even between Ed and Shay, like how their relationship starts to blossom, and then how, spoiler alert. Well, no, I won't spoil it, but
we don't like as long as everyone knows it's coming.
You like break my heart at the end of it. Like it's just like and you didn't break it. There's hope, right? There's light at the end of the tunnel.
There's
but
hope. There's definitely hope.
He like
It's a YA.
wins one battle and then has to come back and struggle with another, which I guess is like that's very much life, right? You can't win all the time. It's always a struggle. It's one battle to the next, and you got to, like you said, stay true to yourself and stay strong and persevere. But yeah, it's on that note. I mentioned this earlier, like. Tell me what I need to do for you two to campaign for a volume 2. Cause like I need it in my life. Like it has to happen.
It stinks to just say like, it's a numbers game, but it's a numbers game. I think like when I get my Random House authors newsletter every week, when they're like, here's your tips and tricks, this is what you should be doing on social media. I think mostly what we need is like reviews for people to say that they like the book.
Okay.
I would really love not so much comic reviewers, but like parents and kids who read the book together to respond to it as like a bonding experience, because you mentioned that it felt kind of like cross age. I grew up not really reading comics, but when I got into comics, I obviously got super into Hellboy. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like, I was like, I want people who have kids and love Hellboy, but maybe don't feel like their kid is ready for that sort of thing yet, to kind of have this middle ground where it's like very graphic and thematic, and you get really excited about like mythology. And like our Fomorian class, they're pretty dark if you research deeper into that sort of mythology. They're not benevolent creatures.
Yeah, and we have like a main character is a lich, so we're not afraid to kind of like deal with the dark.
Yeah.
I think the way I would describe it is like we want Underkingdom to be like a safe book for kids, but not a dumbed down.
Yeah, it's like something that you can experience together and get you excited about researching other things. We have like all sorts of, we did a bunch of like little fake ads where it was like items that were sold in a basement and they were just kind of mysterious. And so we wanted people to kind of get excited to play in this world and do interesting things. And it's a dungeon crawler. And so it would be really nice it would be really flattering if the kids who play D&D did their own little dungeon with it one day. That would be neat to see.
Have you guys thought about doing that? That's not unheard of these days.
We have,
to do like a campaign spin-off.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot of extra work when you've got deadlines and other shit going on, but
it is, but it's also like part of what makes Underkingdom feel like a world is it is a world to us. Like it's a lot of different it's a comic, but we also think of it in other ways. Like thinking about an Underkingdom set of stickers is even kind of fun, because you're like, who do we feature? How do we want to make this something that kids can interact with? Like in the back of the book, there's some black and white circles with like creatures' faces on them. And something that we wanted to be able to do, and they didn't come in time for C2E2, but was like have little stickers that kids could add if they saw us. So like you could get a special sticker from a convention, put it in your book. We want people to engage with it and have fun and use it to make memories.
Totally. And I think, we mentioned them a little bit earlier, but the dungeon is made up of different factions of monsters. So the way we've kind of grouped this eclectic bunch of monsters is in terms of like they're in factions based on their traits. So you have like the icky, which are the growth monsters, the tricky, which are kind of like the magical kind of and spellcaster monsters, the creepy, which are like zombies, skeletons, witches,
vampires,
things
the dead things.
Yeah, dead things. And then the few, which are like cryptids or like mythical monsters, like minotaurs. Ones where there's only like one.
Oh, we've got the strong too. We can't forget we've got the strong.
Yeah.
Our strong orcs and like ogres and giants and stuff like that.
But the kind of the point behind that, outside of the narrative, was like we want people to kind of like. I hate using this comparison, but it's like the Hogwarts houses effect, where people can see themselves in and find a group that they kind of gravitate.
We would like to replace those with 100%, better ones, 100%. Gayer ones.
I mean, I think a lot of people working in genre for fantasy for kids right now. I mean, I think everyone's aim is like just make Harry Potter irrelevant.
Yeah, and that would be like the greatest thing that we could do as creators. Like, I don't know. I loved having a book that everyone around me read and I could talk to everyone about. And
it's a universal language.
Yeah. Like kids want to have something that everyone can get excited about, but we have to have books that make everyone feel included if that's the sort of thing we want to do.
Yep.
And ethically, I would like to do that because I like talking about books with people, and I want everyone to have a book that makes them feel really good and seen and welcome, and or just like stuff is normal, just like stuff could be regular.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom is a teacher, and so one of the things that she pointed out in the classroom specifically, because she's also in Missouri, is that there were just a lot of pride flags just around. And she was like, that's so nice. Why'd you do that? And I was like, that's what I wanted when I was in high school, because that's how you know you're like safe in this particular spot.
Yeah.
And that it's not really a big deal. It's just around. It's just part of the decor of the world that you're in.
Mm.
And so that's the kind of book that I wanted to read growing up. Just one where I felt like I was not abnormal for having just like this one very normal part of myself that I was being told was not regular. But having that in a fantasy book is really, really important. And so when you have books that exclude you intentionally, like why would anyone want to talk about that stuff in public? It's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
And now we're lucky that all the kids who got burned by those sorts of books growing up are now the creators who don't want to create that stuff. So they're creating the books they wish they had.
Yeah.
People are getting mad because they've got no talent and can't write their own books. Whatever. I don't know. Or no one wants to read hate books, maybe is what I should say, is like the books that they're writing are just terrible and bad and boring and full of garbage. So people are going for the good, fun stuff that makes them feel nice.
Yeah.
But I would love if we could oust every Hogwarts house and just people would be deciding what monster faction they were. Although I guess like the Tricky would quickly become the Slytherin house, and I don't want that. I don't want that for them. I want them to have better. I want them to have better.
I'm with you. It was I'm one of those, like I grew up with that, and I was enchanted by it for a while too as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And like everybody was, and I had really bad pneumonia in grade school, and I missed a month and a half of school. And I remember I never really knew how sick I was, but I couldn't go outside, and I remember like being tired and coughing a lot, right? Similar to like getting COVID last year. Or like around Christmas time. But like I was just young and kind of, I was just like, didn't really get it. And I remember like when my dad took me to the doctors and they took like the x-rays of my lungs and stuff. And like my dad started crying.
No,
and I was like, why are you crying, Dad? And he goes, I'll never forget this, man. He was like, you don't realize how sick you are. And I was like, what does that mean? So I was like trapped inside. I've always loved to read. Books have always been important to me. And that's how I came across that little wizard with the scar. And and that was like, I felt like I was like underneath the staircase and needed to escape into a new world, right? Because I was like a kid. I couldn't go outside and shit. So it was a big part of my childhood. And then to realize that like she's a fucking monster, it really messed me up, right? And to have so many people that are just like, yeah, but it's such a good story. Like, it's okay. It's like Ezra Miller can like choke people and kidnap them, but they make a good Flash, like it's going to be a good movie. Like I'm like, no, like don't fucking forgive these people. And
the magic is gone now.
Yeah, it is. And like, I can't do it. And it's such a bummer. And I'm not like, I won't play that fucking video game. I don't care how good it is. Like, and I won't.
I've heard not.
Oh, really?
I've heard a lot of people be like, just not.
I've heard it's got some racist, like racial issues.
It does
in
have
there
some
too,
anti-Semitic stuff in there for sure.
And I think like it's interesting to me that, and I feel for the queer community and particularly the trans community at this time, because it's like they're realizing how little that allyship means to a lot of people. And I mean, like, it's so important now more than ever. I talked a bit about this on other podcasts, but like, conservatives are obviously actively trying to get rid of queer people and particularly trans people at the moment, from public space and fictional space. And the only kind of, obviously the public space or real world space is more important, but the one thing they can often do in fictional space that they can't do in real space is they can say that, trans people shouldn't exist in media, whereas they're not, for the most part, not quite there in real life yet, but they can openly say it in media. So now more than ever, it's so important that we say, no, like, trans and queer people need to exist in media. you know, and I think everyone needs to be including these kind of people in their books. Again, if you're not part of that community, don't tell stories specific to them, but like, you know, you can have characters that are queer or trans, but just don't, you know, speak specifically to those to issues that you need insider knowledge of, you know, about. And, you know, returning to Shay, I don't know what it's like to go through high school queer because I haven't had that experience, but I do know what it's like to have to have an awkward crush and to you know, to be a high schooler and deal with those feelings. So that's what I spoke to.
I think it was funny because like in the one kind of our team was the one place where you were outnumbered. You were the only.
Oh yeah, which is good. It's a great position to be in.
And so our whole team was basically was 90% queer.
Yeah, except for me.
It was impossible to have like a book where that wasn't going to be at least some of the focus, just because that was the sort of, that's just the team of the book. And so then you end up kind of writing books. I don't know, you could disagree, but I think you will agree that when you are creating a very realistic or seamless world, even if it's fantasy, it should reflect the experiences that you have living in your everyday life.
Oh, 100%.
And not everybody is like a rich prep school kid. Prep school kid. And so now, like, part of my favorite little tiny bee thing in Under Kingdom is there's like a game of Magic the Gathering going on throughout lunch in the entire bag.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all playing like Magic the Gathering games. And so you can see like the table gets bigger as they have more lunch scenes in the cafeteria. There's more kids at the table and they switch up. So they're all playing, but it was like the best way I could be like, here's our class. Here's what our school looks like. Here's all the kids in the school. And if you notice that it looks like your school, even better. This is how you're, it's just like all the kids together, all mashed up, and it's all different sorts of kids who I feel like would get to be kids now, who would maybe have gotten shut down for being that sort of kid in the 90s and early aughts, which is also weird because like we're all older now. We're not in like the regular school system with kids because we're all in our 30s. So we're, you know, a while out. But it's fun to believe that this is a school that could exist now. And I don't know, maybe I revise what you asked earlier, what you could do to help with books, with getting the word out. And I think maybe, obviously, yes, reviewing things now and getting the good word out that way. But later when we have to show up for all those library protests in Missouri and we're both at one, please back me up when I say Under Kingdom really is a good book and it's not going to turn your kids into demons.
Yeah.
And you can be like, no, I read it. It's cool. They're totally normal.
I will say that getting on a banned books list these days it's asinine, right? But it does prompt book sales. So I do like that our nation as a bigger part, like, even though like people are very much realizing that like these bans are bullshit and people make a point of buying physical copies of these books when they get banned. I do like that. So I mean,
but it's the adults. I don't know. Like I understand that from a bookseller perspective, but there's part of me inside that is just always screaming. Because it's all terrible. Of my books are going to be banned. Like Where Black Stars Rise will be banned because it also has a queer lead. Under Kingdom will be banned because it's a queer lead, and Controlled Burn will be banned because it's a queer lead. Like they're just all, are they all just doomed? What about the kids that I wrote for?
Yeah, that's kind of, I think the double-edged sword, right, is obviously, you know, the banned book effect can boost sales, but it boosts sales for people who kind of are already on side, and it means the kids, you know, the queer kids in a family that can't talk about it or don't even know that's a thing you can be, don't get access to it. That's kind of that's what really worries me about you know, it is, you know, a lot of the if you don't know you can be something, if you don't see that it's something you can be, then you often don't know.
I would love it. Like my big concern is if it goes off Hoopla, then like how do kids in rural communities who don't have like a very good library loan system, and you know how Missouri can be, like we have our library loan system is like statewide, and so you can get stuff in rural communities, but it takes a while. And with Hoopla, you could just put it on your phone, and so you could read it in secret if it wasn't banned, or you could download it in secret and get a bunch of viruses on your family computer, whatever you want to do. And so I don't know, like it's that background worry, just because I like you read Under Kingdom, it's just a fun book. It's a fun book with just fun stuff. It's not anything crazy. It's not anything like dark and disturbing. It's just a regular book for
totally.
kids.
And and like in terms of agenda, the only agenda I had writing it was like you can be kind.
Yeah.
And you exist and you have a space. Like that's
Yeah.
that. And a lot of the banned books, that's all all they're kind of trying to say.
Yeah,
like
I would just say it was like you're okay.
particularly as like a straight cis creator, a lot of what I try and do in my all ages work is like I want to extend the insane privilege and comfort I get to feel just about everywhere. I want everyone to feel that. So that's at least Under Kingdom was my attempt to be like, hey, this is how it feels to be, to be fully accepted for who you are, no ifs and or buts. I hope that kind of come through.
No, it's good. I as someone who came out as bisexual at the age of 37 on a live stream, which is what I did a few weeks ago. Because I felt like, I mean, it was weird, and like I still haven't told a lot of my friends, but like I told all my family and stuff, and like everybody was cool with it. Like my parents were just like, okay. I was also hammered. I was hammered when I told.
Anticlimactic.
I know. I was like all working up to it. I was like, but I mean, yeah. So I'm appreciating these narratives in a new way now, and yeah, like if someone can realize who they are much earlier in life and not feel that struggle of like, I have great friends, right? But I was always like, what are they going to think if I tell them that, Yeah. And so, yeah, it's very cool to see more and more of these popping up. And I'm with you. It really sucks when people are attacking them and getting them banned and for, stupid, superficial reasons, when all you're doing is telling a good story. And like you said, reminding people that it's okay to be kind. It's okay to have your own problems. It's okay to struggle and figure out who you are and to work through these things. Right. And like, it was really cool. And so, yeah, I appreciate both of you guys, doing that. And I think you did it well. And there's no heavy-handed politics. It's the fun is in the fun is in the forefront.
Politics is there in kindness, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. I do want to mention, because we keep getting sidetracked, but there's you guys have dragons. All right. And there's a special dragon in particular by the name of Lemon, and it's right there behind you. And it's like this. It's like a Dr. Seussian kind of. It doesn't look like a typical dragon, and like, and they
got a lemon.
Oh,
cool. We've got Lemon all over.
There we go. Long.
Yeah. Lemon's our boy.
Long weird body.
Barcode too.
There
we go.
Yeah, he has like a long weird body.
How did like as like calling it a dragon and totally redesigning the dragon form? What was the thought process in there? Because it works so well on the page. The giant kind of puppy mentality. They just love pets.
Oh, that was Christof. The path was Christof.
Nice.
Lemon's personality came from Christof.
I don't know about that.
I was drawing him in dive bars for many, many years. And he has like, you don't see it because you've never seen his butt, but he has two beautiful, like perky round ass cheeks, like shining like the sun.
No
and I
way.
would draw, oh yeah, he's got like little pert butt. And so I would draw him on everything, like tables, bathroom stalls, pizza boxes,
awesome.
Just in dive bars because he was really easy to draw. He's just like a tube with some stripes. And as many wings or hands or legs as are funny. So he does technically have an amount of arms and wings, but I don't know how many. And I feel like it would vary depending on like what was funniest at the time. And there's stuff that we do with him later that's really fun that deals with his longness, but I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
And I guess the one thing that I will say and give away about Lemon is his body is incredibly long, and he is all over the comic in many of the panels. Even if you don't see him, you have to look for him in some of the daylight panels. Yeah, he's hidden. He's got a really long bod. He goes places. He's a lot of places at once.
I guess, yeah, in terms of like him just being like, I think the thing we really loved doing about Under Kingdom was like just to have just weird takes on existing kind of mythological things, So we tried to do that with the dwarves. We did do that with Lemon.
The Mothman, I think.
Yeah, the Mothman, goblins. Like a lot of it was just like
the Minotaur in book 2. I think if we get book 2, I think that whole situation.
Yeah, like it's something we're sort of want to do is kind of just play with what we like about these tropes and throw out what we don't like. And Lemon was kind of like that. I mean, dragons are so kind of well known, but I think Lemon. Marie, the design takes a lot of influence from like eels and snakes and like.
What was we did an interview with Byron early at the beginning, and he said that Lemon was like he sent me I need to send him a Lemon print. He sent me like a bunch of information about it, but he was like, this reminds me of this like native dragon to, I think like.
It was like a winged serpent.
Yeah, it was like a winged serpent.
In American First Nations mythology, yeah.
But like, I think it was on the East Coast because his family had like known about this and he was really excited about it because he's like, I've never seen this in media before. And I had never heard of that before. Had you heard of it before?
No, I had not.
It was super new, but he was super pumped and that got me super pumped. And now we know more about winged serpents.
Yeah, and I mean, I think winged, like snakes, right, appear in so much mythology. I know there's stuff about serpents in First Nations mythology in Australia. Obviously there's the Bible story. But they just kind of appear, and it's interesting that they're either the heroes or like the villains. There's not really much in between. Because doesn't a giant snake eat the world in like Norse mythology as well?
Yeah. There's like the world serpent. There's the Ouroboros.
Yeah, so they just kind of pop up, and I guess Lemon was kind of just a very fun. Lemon's just a big.
Lemon is nice.
Sweetie. And something that you wouldn't know from the comics, but this speaks to the fact that Marie and I have talked about these characters a bunch, is that all dragons in the world of Underkingdom have New Zealand accents.
I love it. It's beautiful. He's a Kiwi.
And when we told that amazing editor Connor, he was like, "Oh, so they're from New Zealand?" And me and we were like, "No, they are not. No. But they have New Zealand accents."
I feel like they really could be from all over.
Of course,
and you would just have to. Do they have a spawning ground? Like actual eels do? The mystery dragon ground?
Yeah, the point is that, we've talked so much about these characters outside. They exist, there's so much more to them that we weren't able to kind of put on the page that we would love to do.
There will be more books. More books. More books are needed to explore the monsters more in depth.
And in terms of like, doing more, obviously we're kind of hinging on sales numbers, but I think, we will do everything in our power to make more. We love this book. We loved it. We love working together.
We're no strangers to self-publishing.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know what kind of deals like Dark Horse does, and I hope they realize what they got, and I feel like they're a good home for people. So like, and I know it's easier in some elements to have that publisher behind you, but I was gonna ask because I know you're both familiar with crowdfunding, but I also know that sometimes you don't get to crowd like even though you like made this thing, it's like sometimes you like sign it away and don't. But I haven't really
we didn't sign it away.
Okay. Nice.
No. We didn't sign it away. We own Underkingdom. So
nice.
that's kind of the blessing is like when you, I don't know, like I don't want to get too much into the money side of things because this is like a fun creative podcast and not like a sad business talk. But like
I'm glad I don't go into the sad, boring
No, look. If you ever just, like,
I fucking made it.
I always get called into like comic programs in the States to kind of give the Doomstar talk because I think of things very practically, but I love comics and I do want everyone to be able to make their best work as comfortably as they are able to because it's really hard to survive this way. It's a hard lifestyle.
Yeah.
But we do own all of our Dark Horse stuff, which is really, really nice. And we would not have had that same deal if we had gone with different publishers.
I was about to say that, the thing about working with like a direct market publisher is that they really great, really, really good royalties that would be unheard of in the book market, and you get to own your shit.
But your advance is smaller. So you have to find other ways to like kind of live. And I don't know, with comics especially, you kind of always have to have multiple streams of income. Like you said, you're waiting on hearing back from other work. And even if a publisher's like, I totally want your book, you could still wait a year to sign paperwork.
And then even wait for the money to come.
Yeah, that could be another 6 months. So you have to like find lots of different things to do and lots of different ways to make stuff work. And so we kind of knew with Under Kingdom that we were going to be reliant on sales for book 2. But we both really enjoyed working on the project together, which was really important. You don't always like working on the, like, even if you love working on comics, you do not always like working on the comic you are currently working on for like various different reasons. But Under Kingdom was always very fun to work on and very easy to work on and very easy to return to. So while it would be hard to not have publisher support for a book 2, I think personally, like, we're both pretty goal oriented towards making it happen, just because it was a fun experience. And everyone we've talked to about the book has been like, but that cliffhanger though, when's the second book coming out? And it's hard. And then you're just like, well, it's gonna be at least another 2 years because I am slow. But I will try to go faster.
I mean, well, I wouldn't want you guys to rush anything, because it very much feels
you don't
like...
have to rush. We have to get a colorist. I'll have to talk to Jordan and see what he wants to do, if he wants to return.
I thought flatter.
Yeah, he struggled at the beginning. He was like, those shapes, but then at the end his eyes sort of just like unfocused, and he got it.
He transcended.
Yeah, now he sees just in triangles and blotches, and he can make it work. He's the best flatter there is. Him and Jasmine killed it.
Now, speaking of, just I know I kept you guys for an hour and a half. I got one more quick question, because I was going to ask and we got sidetracked, because you mentioned when Marie, when you were younger, you were really into like the Hellboy comics, and I see some of him in your work, like it's the shapes and character designs and the, like, you know, tapestries and environments, like but it's just a little bit, right? Like a little bit of that flavor, and then you're putting your own big spin on it, and I'm like,
think so.
I hope. It's, I mean, was that it was I can't talk. Was that like, so that was meant, like, because I see a lot of him in your work.
A lot of people do. I did not start reading Hellboy until I was in my 20s. So I was in college. Like I didn't really read comics until I graduated from college. And then I started working in comics. I was like, oh, I better read. So I loved Hellboy then. I grew up watching Invader Zim. So that's
I see a lot of that. A lot of
I was really into Invader. I had bootleg cable at my parents' house for like 4 months when we moved to Missouri. And I caught an episode of Invader Zim during this time period, and I was just like, I am so disturbed. This is awful. What am I looking at? And then I just started drawing that way, and there was no like formal art instruction at my school. So I would just draw Invader Zim like screen caps, and I was online torrenting things and on message boards, pulling things off of message boards and redrawing them. And then I got to college, and I was in an art program, and I had to kind of readjust my style a little bit to be a little bit not a carbon copy. And when I got to Mignola, like I love Abe Sapien is actually like my one true love. And so I was really into all of that work and all the Hellboy stuff, of course. But my first inspiration was Jonan Vasquez and Carl Christian Krumpholtz, who did slave labor graphic stuff. He did like a comic called Byron. He does one now called 30 Miles of Crazy. It's about living on Colfax in Denver. It's actually really fun, and I highly recommend it. It's a really, really graphic thing. But if you look at his work and then you look at my work, you'll be like, aha, this is where it came from. That's why the perspective looks this way. Maria's biting Carl's style, I see. But yeah, that's where like I was really inspired by a lot of just like the heavy graphic blacks, because that's how Invader Zim was. It was like the first art that I had seen that was just like, wow, it's so weird and different, and there was nothing like it on TV, especially like at that time in the 90s. It was all like kind of rounded. Now that's why I draw this way. I don't draw round. I'm trying to draw rounder. In book 2 of Under Kingdom, it will look a little different, but it will still have a lot of spot blacks. Don't worry.
Nice.
We'll still do a lot of tapestries. The tapestries 100% are Mignola. And if you go to the Imp pile, you can find all my off-brand Hellboy comics in there. I wasn't sure if they would get picky about me using Hellboy, even though it was a Dark Horse book. So I think it's called like Babe Sapien or something like that. It's something really bizarre. Greg Monkey, that's what it is. Greg Monkey. So yeah, it was fun. I love Hellboy, and I love Invader Zim still, I guess, and I love Carl's work. So
nice.
Check them out. Get all of them on your podcast, and then you have like 3 interviews just set up. Surely you can get Mike Mignola now, right? You've got the press pass from Planet Comic Con.
Yeah,
he has to abide.
I'm
That's
yeah,
the rule.
I've been getting lucky, but I don't know. That's a pretty big get.
I feel like if you just get him at a show and you get like a cranky statement, that counts as an interview.
Yeah, totally.
Carl would definitely.
He was tired. He was tired that day, ladies and gentlemen. To be fair, going back to that the guy that was tired, once I started talking to him and told him like how I liked his book, and we started talking about his book, like he got in a better mood. But it was one of the first interviews I did there where I was like, oh, maybe I should leave this guy alone. I don't know.
Did he look like this?
Yeah.
just like zoning off into the distance. There's a
he was like, thank God it's Sunday. I was like,
I get to go home.
Yeah.
There's a photo of John LaMancha, who's a phenomenal body horror creator. Highly recommend them. And Kelly Williams, who's another horror creator who's phenomenal. Really like EC, like creepy comic stuff. It's really cool. We're all out at dinner after a convention, and the 3 of us are sitting there like this. It's just like a candid photo that someone snapped, and we're all looking in different directions over like this big tureen of soup, just like into the middle distance. Our mouths are all open. Like, it's the best candid photo. It's like one of the worst photos of any of us that could ever exist, but it's also like one of the best candid photos to explain like, how do you feel after a convention? Like this. You're surrounded by everyone you love, but you are so tired. You cannot look at them in the eyes.
Yeah, it's a totally different kind of exhaustion that I've never experienced. And I mean, I know I worked the convention too, but it's also different. Like, you know, I could walk away, right? I could go.
I don't know. Could you? You had a ton of equipment in your bag.
Sunday I couldn't, but like Friday was too busy. I got a couple interviews on Friday. One of Phil Hester convinced me to skip the Chris Claremont panel to do an interview with him. Which that actually worked because it was like talking to him was really cool, and I love his art, and so and then I still got to meet Chris. I actually pissed Chris Claremont off.
I mean, that feels like it's
he doesn't. Okay, so Chris Claremont needs a warning label on his table that says like, "Don't fucking talk to me about other people's X-Men." Is what he.
Oh, that's okay. All right.
But I mean, he still took a picture with me and smiled. But you know, like I was
what
really
other
into...
people's X-Men did you hold up? Did you have him sign another person's X-Men?
All right, you guys want to hear the story? I've kept you a while.
Yeah,
but I'll tell.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So first of all, Chris Claremont was super friendly, and he had a big line. The Planet staff cut the line off, but they all stayed late so he could clear the line.
That's really nice.
Yeah. It was. What sucks is Chris doesn't realize how long he is with certain people, and he talked to this one kid. He wasn't a kid; he was like my age. But like they talked for like, I bet they talked for an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, like we're just standing in line. And okay, so we're all at first. All right, I suck at telling stories. All right, so we're in line, and Chris has to go to a panel. And the guy who's like running his table and like taking money, he's like, all right, I'm going to give all you guys numbers, right? You come back after the panel, use your number, get back in line. Okay. So when we all come back to get back in line, we notice that I'm number 17. There's 2 other 17s. There's 3 16s. This guy is just handing out multiple numbers to everybody. Everybody was in a good mood about it. You know, everybody was cool. We're all like, you know, it's okay. We were kind of in the same place. But yeah, so there was like a definite kerfuffle, and so we're waiting in line. Chris comes back. He talks to this dude for like an hour and 20 minutes, and then finally the line starts to move again. And the woman in front of me had a dual action figure pack, and it was Cyclops and Phoenix, and she was going to have him sign the window. So she's in front of me, and he's talking about Cyclops and Phoenix, and he's talking about their relationship. And she goes, you know, she's like, I'm more of a fan of Jean and Logan. She's like, I liked them together. And he was like, yeah, it never really, you know, was meant to be that way. And I was like, well, you know, now Jonathan Hickman's got them all fucking on the moon.
What did he say?
And he goes, he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, the Krakoan era. Like they're all living together, having sex on the moon. And he like gratuitously rolls his eyes. He's like, the Krakoan era. And I was like, oh no. I was like, sorry. I ruined the vibe, everybody. And he just kept being like, he was like getting mad about it. And then he would ask questions. He'd be like, but he's like, who's the top then? And I was like, well, it's got to be
They're all the
Cyclops.
top
He's a
on the moon.
national
There's
leader.
no gravity.
Yeah.
I don't think Cyclops should be allowed to be the top, because if he's the top, what if he blasts you by accident?
Well, I
What
feel
if-
like he's blasting
what
you
if-
on purpose.
I mean, he is. But, oh no! What if he's got a dick laser too? That's the secret Cyclops thing they don't tell you about. Is he's got a dick laser.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking like he'd be up there and then he would just be like looking off into the distance, just blasting whoever was in front of him. That's dangerous. He needs to be on the bottom of the pile.
Oh yeah.
Cyclops
yeah,
is the
it's safer that
ultimate
way.
bottom.
You know, I didn't realize because I need to catch up on the Hickman X-Men stuff. I've only read like the first kind of like arc, but yeah, I didn't realize that they were all fucking on the moon now.
I'm
That's
glad
So
that they can all
it's-
get up
it's
there and have
never
like a little
explicit.
orgy break.
But yeah, right. Like there's
Oh,
never like
no.
you never get like the full blown X penetration scene.
Now
But there-
you would on Patreon.
Yeah.
There's
maybe
someone
I'll
out there
just-
who's like, there's not enough moon fucking. Bring them on the moon.
But there's
I
like
got this.
there's a panel in it's either House of X or Powers of 10, and Cyclops and Jean and Wolverine, like Cyclops has his arms around both of them, and Wolverine has his like hand on Cyclops's abs, and he's drinking a beer, and it's very tender. And then
It's a
Hickman
throuple.
loves his graphs and stuff, right? So when we see the moon, the Summers moon vacation home. The 3 bedrooms, Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean, there's no doors on the 3 bedrooms.
Seeking brother husbands with X-Men.
Yeah.
We have got a reality TV crossover for Marvel. I would like to pitch it now. And it's Seeking Brother Husbands, but it's just X-Men, and it's only focused on this exact throuple situation. And they are on the moon.
That's amazing.
I want it on the moon.
Yeah.
Can we get live actors to play them? Do you think they'll all come back and reprise these roles? I think they'll do
Yeah,
it.
just don't talk to Chris Claremont about it. And then I was like,
all
oh,
I'm gonna
I'm
do
sorry. And
now.
I like said sorry to like the people around me. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I killed the vibe, guys. Like, but
That's
he
so
still smiled for a picture and signed my books and like.
But inside, you knew he was dead.
Oh
thinking
yeah,
about
like
Cyclops
I was
on the
gonna
moon.
ask him for an interview. I was gonna, cause I had my press badge, right? So like that's pretty much you can just ask whoever. And I was like, I'm not asking him for an interview. It's no way he's gonna talk
He
to
won't
me
do
anymore after this.
Here's my question. My Chris question. I've never met him in person, so I cannot attest to this. Is he a hater? Like a fun way, not like of people, but of like things? Because I think that I would have fun rolling my eyes about the moon fucking, just to be dramatic, just to be extra in the moment. But I wouldn't really hate it. I'd really be glad that they were up there
No,
living their best moon life.
I've heard he does not like other people's X-Men. Like he's worked with them for so many decades now. Like I guess like so Jean was never supposed to be back. Like once Jean was dead, she's supposed to be dead forever. So he hates that like Jean is back. He definitely doesn't like Jonathan Hickman because he like quote unquote he was like that writer needs to get a life. And I was just
Oh, no!
like, whoa. And so yeah, like but when I was telling
He needs
the
to get a life
story-
and go fuck on the moon.
yeah. But when I told the story, people were like, yeah, like
I love
Chris
it.
Claremont doesn't like other people's X-Men. He just like his X-Men was his
That would be
vision and his baby and that's how it is.
But you wrote it for a big
I was
publisher,
gonna
so
say,
it's
sure,
not your
yeah,
fault.
I mean, that's
You
Yeah.
just
can never give your best storylines to Marvel or DC.
or
You
even,
save
like,
those.
you just have to accept that it's all like drawings in the
Yeah.
sand, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's only permanent for so long, and
It-
that's kind of like I think the kind of the pain and the joy of it, right? Is you just kind of have to accept that you're contributing a small part to this big thing, and what kind of nothing is permanent, right? But what
no.
makes it permanent is if it kind of like resonates with fans.
I really hope that the moon orgy arc really just like solidifies that all the X-Men now live on the moon.
Well, I know a bunch of people are loving this new kind of horny
There's
era of X-Men.
Yeah,
everyone
it's
is into
very like melodramatic and intense, and
That's
it's a
my career.
huge X-Men soap opera, and I like it's got there's so many X books right now, and like I had to back off. I used to be on a podcast that just dealt with X-Men, and I was buying like all the X-Men books, and it
So
just got like intense. But yeah, there's
your
and
whole
people's
life could just be
sexualities-
X-Men.
Yeah, like but like people's sexualities are all on display, and it's very much like a kind of like Nightcrawler comes up with the rule, like one of the new rules of the Krakoan age of living on this island and stuff is make more mutants, and so like they set that up in the beginning, like we all need to be
Oh
fucking
no.
all the time.
We gotta make more mutants.
That-
Yeah.
That's how we met. Was over a Nightcrawler in person. Was over a Nightcrawler drawing.
Oh wow!
Stuff a Nightcrawler.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite.
What position does he get to take in the Moon Orgy? Is my biggest question. Because if he's dictating that everyone must have babies, is he like top of the pile now? That seems like it would go against his religious belief.
Well, he's got the tail, right? So the tail could either he can do a lot of stuff with that tail. It could hold an apparatus, or it could do things itself. So he could be like top and in between, like simultaneously.
Damn, you're right. I like this new arc for Bondage, Dom, Nightcrawler. I know that we didn't start off with him that way, but now that he's like the top and the middle, I've given him this role also. He's the leader of the New Mutants, the New Mutant Orgy. I love it. Welcome to this new storyline. I'm ready.
The Marvel editorial does listen to my podcast, so no, they don't. No,
I don't.
No one
at
Marvel listens to Blake Buzz. Unfortunately,
I hope that someone at Marvel listens to that podcast, and I hope they never ask me to draw that comic because I do not want to. I do not want to draw the Moon Orgy. It would not be suited for my style. And we're too busy doing.
I was going to say you do, and Marie's does a lot of things really well. I don't think I've ever seen you do like suggestive or horny art.
I drew a couple when I was doing my like bootleg covers, but nobody is into the sort of erotic stuff that I'm into. Or I just say I like Pinhead, and they're like, we don't want to talk to you anymore. No more. We're done. Get out of here. Get out. Nope. But I did Oni when they had Limerence going on before all the drama. I was approached about doing a porn comic, and I told my dad, and he's like, you should do it.
I love that your dad was on.
Yeah, he was really on board.
That's incredible.
It wasn't like super high pain, so I didn't really want to do it. But he was like, you know how many people would love to see you draw blood and tits? A lot. And I was like, I don't think that many, but okay, I'm not going to do this book. That was the one opportunity I had.
That's incredible.
I did Under Kingdom instead.
This is so funny.
That was my.
Well, I'm glad you skipped the blood and tits to go into the secret underground.
The exact opposite. I don't think there's any blood in Under Kingdom.
No.
And certainly no nipples that I'm aware of.
There's nipples everywhere. The wall, like, see all these spikes? That's just a wall's nipple. All those little points that I draw, people think that they're just like points. No, everything's a nipple.
Everything's covered in nipples.
Everything is a nipple. Terrible nipple hell. Welcome to nipple hell. Sorry that this is a kid's book, and that's now you know.
Hey,
that's a lot.
Kids gotta learn. I remember those awkward classes where they taught us what to put what. And
they don't do those anymore. They're against Jesus.
Yeah, so I went to a private school too. Like that, it was funny. So like I'm in Catholic school and they're like teaching us about sex and masturbation, but then they're like, but don't do it because you go to hell.
It'll be so bad. We had a guy in a big sweater who would come to our Catholic school. He had like a big, and I always had like little accoutrements to it, like puffballs or sparkles. And he would put up all the people who didn't go to the free clinic and be like, you want this to happen to you? Don't have sex. And I was like, oh God. If you've never seen a genital before, and then that's the only thing you've seen, you're just like, what?
Yeah.
What's happening? Yeah, you're just like, oh, America.
Amazing.
Well, we didn't have the health bus.
On that note, I'm
so I don't want to end it on that note. That's so awful.
Well, I was gonna say, I just want to bring it back to say how much I really did enjoy your guys' comic and how great it was and how welcoming it was to an amalgamation of types and genders and sexualities and just anybody can read this, no matter how old you are or who you are, and I love that, and I love how you guys were able to pull that off, via the script and the art and how just natural everything felt, even in this highly like unnatural setting, right? Because it's so crazy.
We don't know. Maybe there is an Under Kingdom, and we've just not been invited into it.
Well, probably not. It's like when people talk about aliens. Like, I probably think aliens are real, but do you really think aliens are flying around looking at how fucked everything is here? And they're like, yeah, let's be friends. Like, no. I'd be like, we're getting the fuck out of here. Like,
they know we're the swarm planet, and they don't want anything to do with the swarm. There's too many of us.
But so the polite podcast host that I am, which some people may not realize that's a thing, but it is, I swear. This is the part I just want to make sure, like, do you guys have like a newsletter, or like where do we find you on social media and stuff so that like everybody can
have
like,
a
follow you
newsletter
and keep track of you?
Yeah. think our newsletter's on a link tree.
Yeah. So we have the Humble Valley Gazette, which is our newsletter. We haven't sent one out for a little bit. But the easiest way to find us is currently why it still exists through Twitter. Yeah. So Marie, you're
SO_ENGERY.
So angry.
So angry, but it's angry spelled with an E.
That's so good.
And so it's often difficult to read for some people. People add a lot of extra like RYs in there. I don't know. ENGERY. That's how it goes.
And then I'm just my name, so at Christof Bogacs.
And you can find that on the cover of our book, Under Kingdom. Oh wait. There, wait. Christof is the skull with the onion. There you are.
Oh yeah, the blooming onion.
Yeah. It's blooming right out of your eyeball.
But yeah, the other thing is, right, if you just Google Under Kingdom comic as well, it'll come up.
It's like the first thing that comes up too. Not if you search Under Kingdom. You do have to add the comic at the end of that. Yeah. But I don't think we might be on Amazon to review. I don't know if we're on Goodreads to review yet. I don't think that we are.
No, I don't believe
Yeah,
so.
But when those come out, anyone who likes the book, if they don't want to message us and tell us directly how much they like it, they can just comment on one of those sites and tell us how they liked it.
Totally. Like, leaving a review would be a huge help.
Mm-hmm. Or leaving your book at someone else's house so that they have to buy you a new copy of the book because they liked it and they kept it. So that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Buy 2 copies of the book to give one to your friend.
Put it on your, well, I guess, what's the closest holiday? No, it's after Easter, right? It'll be after Easter when it comes out. I can't remember.
When
it will be by
Orthodox Easter. If you celebrate Orthodox Easter,
if you celebrate 420, it'd be a great gift.
Oh,
maybe not for the children, but for your friends that partake that have kids.
Your kid can have the book for 420, and then you can read it after they go to bed with your 420 treat, and then the colors will extra pop.
Yeah.
You'll be like, so juicy.
You'll really notice those, and make sure that roll one up with used comic book pages too. Like and let us know how that goes, because we are curious to see what, if anything, would happen. But you test it out first.
If you smoke with the X-Men Moon Orgy rolling paper, you could also go to the moon. Can you imagine making a moon rock joint out of the Moon Orgy paper? Ooh! Chris Claremont would die.
Oh my
die
God.
of jealousy.
I feel like he can like feel this conversation right now, and he's just getting angrier.
He's gonna show up at C2E2 and just knock our displays over.
Punch me in the face.
He sends you straight to the moon. We're just gonna both. It's gonna be awful.
He's like Christof, I don't even know you, but I just have to hit you in your smug face.
I knew when I knew you were doing Blake's podcast. I knew you were disparaging the moon. Yeah. Wait, you were pro moon. You were pro moon.
Anti-moon.
Yes, he's anti-moon. We're pro moon. Pro moon mutants. That's too hard to say. Too difficult. We're pro the moon mutants.
Also, the new X-Men comics are pretty cool. I like the freedom of it, but yeah, it is. There is some silliness going on, but you know what? I've learned is if it's consensual, have sex with who you want. If it's consensual and legal, sorry, those two things are important.
I feel like anything is legal on the moon if it's consensual.
There's
no laws on the moon unless it's consensual.
So that's what we want people to take away.
It's like international waters.
No laws on the moon. Yeah.
No laws on the moon.
No laws on the moon.
You can be any sort of mutant you want on the moon. The regular people can't keep you down.
You can breed any turtles you want up there. You don't need a license.
No, any sort of turtles. Nothing but mutants and turtles on the moon. Moon turtles.
I'm cool with that. That's like the Ninja Turtle X-Men crossover I always wanted.
We could make an incredible bootleg that everyone was just like, it's everything that I ever wanted, and it's all together, and just like, no, not like this. Not this. Oh, terrible.
Well, guys, it was such a pleasure getting to talk to you both. You're both you're hilarious. You had me cracking up, and I just really appreciate you guys taking the time, giving me 2 hours. Talking to me for 2 hours has got to be exhausting.
Yeah, so it was a blast. Thank you.
It was great. And then when you come to C2E2 or the next show, you'll come by and see us.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have money, you can come up and say hi to us at the table. And then maybe we'll go grab food after, because we're big into the dinner after conventions crowd.
Nice. Yeah.
Eat. So.
Yeah. I'm also big. I'm a squishy, plumpy boy, so I'm also big on the food stuff.
Yeah. I don't know what food C2E2 has, But now I'm thinking about it.
I'm sure they got good stuff. I mean, the only thing it was cool talking to everybody here because everybody went out for barbecue after, and everybody was just like everybody. Like I remember when I like just let me throw big names out there when I was talking to Steve Orlando when he was on the show, but he was like Steve Orlando was talking about how like he's dreams of coming back to Kansas City and doing PlanetCon because he's just like I want the meat. He was like you don't get that here, and he's like I need it.
That's real. They have a good barbecue. Good barbecue scene. Huh. Well, maybe we should take you to get barbecue.
I would love that.
We got to figure out a place. We don't have the same sort of barbecue. I think it's different when you cross the state, but our barbecue is.
St. Louis is still. I'll be outcasted for saying this, but St. Louis barbecue isn't bad. Kansas City barbecue is we barbecue and then we put like the rubs and spices on it, right? And then you put the sauce on it. And you put it back into the grill and you let the sauce caramelize and kind of attach itself to the barbecue, right? And we also came up with burnt ends, which is like a fancy.
Burnt ends are real good. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's different about KC and like the sauces, like some have like vinegar. I don't know the whole breakdown. I'm not like a huge barbecue snob, but you know, like
I know that you have to be protective of your regional barbecue. Like even if you don't really like it, you have to say that it's the best just because like it is part of where you're from and part of your home, and everyone has to eat. So support it, even if it's gross, unless it's like heinous gross, and then you have to own that as a point of pride.
Yeah, I've never had bad barbecue. I've seen pictures of it online. Like barbecue should never look dry, right? It should never look like
a crispy hunk of meat.
Well, like the outside can be crispy, but not the inside, right? It's not.
Where to go in Kansas City to get the best barbecue? Because the only place I've ever been in Kansas City for barbecue is Gates, and it was, quite frankly, a harrowing experience. But not because of the barbecue, for other factors.
Because it's in the best part of town.
I don't know, but there were a lot of convention people there who were preparing mightily for a My Little Pony orgy. So.
Oh wow.
Comic-Con
I'm not a big Gates fan. Like Gates is okay. I'm not a huge fan. KC Joe's, which used to be Oklahoma Joe's, which was weird. Like a place called Oklahoma Joe's has the best barbecue in KC. But that's really good. And then Jack Stack is decent. The good thing about Jack Stack is they have this cheesy corn that's like it's macaroni and cheese, but with corn instead of noodles and ham chunks, and it's like, oh god, it's good.
What? You could make that at home.
Yeah,
it would be easy to just sub the corn for the noodle.
Yeah, you just I haven't been able, like I found a recipe online to make it and we made it one day and it was good. Like I made the roux, added the cheese, ham, and it was good. But like they have some kind of cheese blend. Like it's got to be like it's like Gouda and something and something and something that they all mix together that makes this like magical combination. But yeah, that and then there's like we have like some new places now like Q39 and Smoke and they're more like fancy, but they're legit too. But yeah, like Jack Stack and KC Joe's and Gates are like the holy trinity basically. And I'm a KC Joe's guy, and they have KC Joe's has really good sandwiches too. So if you just want like a barbecue sandwich and not like just tons of meat, you know, like that's and they got good fries and onion rings.
I don't know. Like when you're going to get barbecue, like, do you want to even bother with the bread unless it's like the thick butter bread? Like what's Texas toast? Yeah. Unless it's the Texas toast, like what's the point of the bread?
Yeah, I don't I'm sometimes I'm hit and miss on barbecue sandwiches. Like there's nothing like a good pulled pork on a bun with some slaw.
That's real.
Like that's you know, like I like that a lot. But yeah, I mean if the meat's good, you don't need bread, right? You just need to save the carbs and shovel more meat into your mouth. Like, you know, that's the goal.
We got to get you a sandwich. We got to figure out where we're taking you today.
Yes, I'm so excited. I just want to eat all the American food. That's all I do when I'm here. It's just eat garbage. It's the best.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that. Did they give you your honorary gun too? You know, when you come here, you're supposed to get.
Oh no, man. Yeah, no. I try not to think about that aspect of America. I try not to think about that aspect of American culture. Why I'm here.
Christof, if you want a gun, you know my dad won another gun in a raffle. You can just have his.
How can you win a gun in a raffle? That's even worse.
For the VF, my grandma and grandpa were in the VFW, and out of solidarity for my grandma, who he loved so much, he supports the charity, and if you support the charity, you can win a gun. So he's won
That's
like 3
wild.
guns this way.
That's insane.
So yes, and you can't get cash instead of the gun. You get the gun. You can't just get the money for the gun. So he's basically won 3 garbage guns. 3 guns he'll never use. We're not a gun. We don't like guns.
Yeah, I don't either.
House.
I made the same joke to David is on it because he was before he made
You
his.
can have one of my dad's guns too.
Yeah,
there's 3 raffle guns.
No.
You and Dave can have a raffle gun.
No. Do you know what that?
because I told David I was like they either give them to you or you just find them on the side of the road. They're everywhere here. They just,
God.
Yeah.
just throw them out so you can find them later. Yeah, no, it's only kind of true. It's only kind of true, Christof.
Oh my goodness.
I would just say, I was like, whoa. It's we joke about it, but then it's just like you hear someone else who's not from it, and you're just like, oh shit, this is actually fucked up, isn't it?
Yeah, no, look, this is the part of one of the few parts of American culture that I don't I just try and ignore that it exists while I'm here.
That's the best way to do it. That's
Otherwise,
kind of how
I
you
would-
have to live your life in general.
I too like to ignore things I'm uncomfortable with, so I get that. Like it's a healthier way to be. Keep the smile on your face. Ignorance
There
is
are
bliss,
no guns
right?
in Under Kingdom.
To an extent,
That's
yeah.
true.
I like that. Well, guys, I will let you go and go get some food. You were both so fun to talk to, and I'm so excited for people to get to experience this book and to meet you all at a con and get to see it in person. And I hope you get more of those experiences of like people of all ages coming up, seeing that book and say, yeah, I need that in my life on my shelf.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah.
C2E2 is going to be really good for
That's
that.
gonna
And
be
I'm
really
glad
lovely.
that you're here for that because we can experience it together.
It's gonna be
fun.
it's gonna be really wholesome. I cannot wait.